Hey there, Narragaugers. It's been a little while since we did a video, and I thought I would post a little something here about what we're doing with building the new tender and where we're at with that. So, the first thing I want to talk about is the tender design. And we found this photograph online recently of a Baldwin tram engine built, I believe, for Cuba, which basically looks like somebody had built a small steam locomotive and dropped a tender on top of it. Well, what I liked about it was the design, especially the front part there that had that opening for the for personnel to get on and off the tram locomotive, and then you have a little bit of a bulkhead and head in front of that. Well, what I liked about that was that on 58 we have that unusual arrangement of having a back cab wall and just having an opening to get in and out of the cab. And because of the tight curves, I really don't like the how that area opens up and closes as you're going around the curves. So if you notice on the little tender, we have a railing right there. Well, replacing a railing with a bulkhead that looks like this, I think would be perfect. So we've taken this design and modified it into the new tender. And to that end, we recently got started on it. We're here in my very disordered garage, looking at a piece of, what is this? This little bit over 13 feet long, 68 inches wide, and 1 inch thick steel plate, weighs 3,000 pounds. We just picked this up at the Steel Service Center on Friday, and here it is in the garage, sitting on a temporary track, and the trucks are underneath it. So, uh, literally, we are starting with a blank slate here. Um, well, however, the plate is sitting here in the garage, waiting for me to do some work on it, and it will eventually go to a fab shop locally where they will build the superstructure for us. We're not going to do the sheet metal work and all that for building the actual sides of the tender. What we're going to work on here is going to be the underside. So actually, the plate is sitting upside down. Uh, just like they build diesel locomotives, they start the frame upside down and then they flip it over. We're doing the same thing here. So, what do we have to do to the bottom? Well, those two holes you see are where a couple of burnouts that we're going to have machined are going to be welded in place, and those will be the center bolts. Now, this casting here is something that I took off of one of the trucks, and that mounts to the top of the truck. And so that piece of a piece of 3-inch burnout will be machined so that it has the convex surface there to accept this, and we'll also have a threaded hole in it so we can put a bolt up from the bottom here up into that piece, and then that will not only hold the truck on the tender should anything happen that derail or anything, the tender won't come out from under the car, and it will also keep the allow us to have a little bit of flexibility with the tender can rock back and forth a little bit on the bottom of the car. Even though we're going to have side bearings that are going to be about, we'll have about a quarter inch of clearance on either side, maybe around that much, maybe a little bit less. I don't really want to have too much flex between the truck and the underneath of the plate here, because a lot of it will be taken up by the trucks and the springs and the equalization on the truck. So I want most of the movement to happen down here on the trucks. So how are we going to do this? Well, those two pieces of burnout are going down to the machine shop here probably tomorrow. I'll get him working on that. When they come back, we'll put them in place and weld them in place. What else do we have to do to the bottom? Well, along either side here is going to be a 6-inch I-beam, and those will form the actual frame of the car. In reality, this piece of plate is the frame. It's going to be the strongest part on the car. But to give it the correct look, we need to have, you see most of these smaller tenders, you see a piece of channel or a piece of beam underneath the tank. If we didn't have that, it would look out of place. So we're going to put the beams on it. On the back end, there will be a piece of channel that will run across, and then the German coupler design that we're using, the buffer coupler, will be attached to that. Up here, there will also be a coupler. This will be the front end that will mate up against the locomotive. And so we had some burnouts made for that. So this piece here will stand up, and then I'll have the 2 gussets next to it, and this piece will then be bolted to that, and then that'll stick out from underneath the front of the car, and then the buffer on the rear end of 58 will meet up against it. It'll be recessed a little bit back into the frame a little bit, so that the front of the buffer is actually pretty close to the front here, but we'll get it back in a little bit. That way we'll have a bit of an apron at the front of the car, which will get up close to the rear end of 58, so we don't have to build that much of a movable apron. So this is basically what we have going on here. I'll tell you, it was not the easiest thing in the world of getting this piece of plate into the garage today. I had to pick it up off the trailer and then get it maneuvered onto the trucks. Sitting on rails here in the garage means that I can shove it all the way back towards the Ames Uniflow back there and get it out of the way so my wife can park her car in the garage, which is always an important thing. So I'm going to be working on this here over the winter and during the bad weather. Coming here doing the welding on it. Whenever we get the bottom of it done, then we'll pick this up, load it back on the trailer, and then over to the fab shop it goes. We'll flip it over and then build the superstructure. And definitely by spring, this tender will be done and ready to go in service, which is good because I have one of the passenger cars to build at least. And we got some other work we're doing on the locomotive itself. I think here's a little sketch I did of that piece that becomes the new center bowl. And you can see we got the radius there, threaded rod, a couple chamfers so that we can weld this in place. And let's take a little look at the couplers. I don't know if we showed you this stuff before. I don't have many of them together, but narrow gauge railroads in Germany and Russia usually use a central buffer design with 2 chains. And we're going with that same design because we found several sets of them that came with the German flat cars that we bought. So here I am modifying them and cleaning them up and getting them ready for service. Instead of using the heavy spring, I've put something a little bit better on there so that'll actually spring under the lighter loads that we're going to have. They had to be modified to fit, so I have those. So those fit over here. Spring goes in there. In another video, I'll show you how all this stuff works and how it all goes together. Yeah, if you're wondering about this engine here, this is an Ames Uniflow single-cylinder stationary steam engine that we got out of New York State. several years ago, and I installed it here in a garage. It actually is going to be leaving here and going up to Heston. It's going up to the fellow that runs Heston as a trade for another piece of equipment. I've really gotten out of doing stuff with the stationary steam and more interested in working with the narrow gauge railroad. So it's time for it to go to somebody else to take care of. So, all right, that's all I have for today for this update. Not much going on, but working with a big steel plate. So everyone, have a Merry Christmas, and be talking to you pretty soon. Take care.